you know,
Yeah.
king's side pawns out there already. Let's go.
Yeah. So we're gonna start by just looking at some basic lines, and I wanted to essentially talk to you about the Muzio Gambit. So it's something that was mentioned in your Discord. Plug your Discord.
Yep.
And I found it really interesting, and I figured I would share it with you. So e4,
Oh,
controlling the center, e5, and then f4, challenging. After e takes f4, we play knight f3, continuing development. And after black plays g5, right, he's threatening to play g4. And
yes.
the engine move here is actually like pawn to h4 by white, but it's so rarely played by humans that I didn't really want to go into it because it's a little difficult to understand. But just keep that in mind. Like that's something that engines like to do, but not humans. We like to play bishop c4, getting ready to
Oh,
castle and targeting the f7 pawn.
good.
Yep.
I was gonna say I like the king's gambit because I lose the f pawn anyway. I just forget about it, so I might as well push it up first, right?
Yeah, for sure. You can't blunder your pieces if you just give them away.
Exactly.
Anyways, after g4, instead of moving the knight anywhere, like, a sane person might, the Muzio Gambit castles. And by castling, we're essentially aligning our rook with the f7 pawn again, and now our king is nice and safe here on g1. Well, not entirely safe, but it's safer than it was in the center of the board.
Interesting.
So after g takes and then queen takes f3, you can see this kind of weird position, right? So here, if you do a material count, then you'll obviously notice that we're down a knight, but
Right.
we got a pawn for it. And fortunately, we essentially have four very, very good pieces. The bishop, the queen, the rook, and the king are already exactly where they need to be, whereas all of black's pieces are still stuck on the back rank and they haven't started yet.
But
Does that make
it,
sense?
it seems like you're triple targeting the f what is that f7, which is
Yeah,
pretty cool.
exactly. So there's four like lines here, and I wanted to essentially go over them with you and then talk about like some ideas in them. So the main line is queen f6, trying to put some defense onto the f7 pawn, and we just play e5. So this move is meant to open up the e file, but more importantly, I want you to kind of think about what we're doing here. We're giving away more material, right? And we're already down a knight.
Right.
Um, so a lot of lower rated players, even after they sacrifice a piece, they seem to think that the game is still like normal. Um, when you're down material in chess, the game turns completely different, and that's why it's so interesting. Because now you don't care so much about material because no matter what, you're saying, okay, I'll just be down material, but I'm going to checkmate you.
That's right.
Eh,
I'm seeing it. So the queen takes, that's a huge blunder here, right? Because then you play rook f to e1 and toward the queen, right?
Well, if I played rook after e1 here, it'd actually be a blunder by white because it's
Oh, I should. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I
yeah.
thought the rooks were not connected.
Yeah, rooks are not yet connected. I mean, if we could magically connect our rooks, then yes, that would be a very good move. But
Yeah.
here, it's correct to do this anyway. And as you can see, since we've already sacrificed an entire piece, we might as well sacrifice another with bishop to f7 check. And the idea here is after the king takes, it's directly on this diagonal. It has no castling privileges. It's lost these three pawns, and none of black's pieces are gonna be able to really do anything if we play correctly.
Cool.
So we
So
start with yeah,
this is the Muzio gambit. This is part of it.
yeah. This is the well. Here it's like just like a normal game at this point. Since we're already on like move 8, we're kind of out of the opening, or like we're starting to be out of the opening. The Muzio Gambit itself starts on right here after we play Queen takes f3. This is the Muzio Gambit.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm just like showing you some lines and ideas that generally go well in the King's Gambit. So after d4, Queen takes d4. Um, there are a few cool ideas. So we actually play Bishop e3 here, and I want you to tell me what's wrong with Queen takes Bishop.
Um. So I mean, the first thing that immediately comes to mind is that you can't first this pawn is pinned, right? So you can't take it with this one. But if queen takes bishop,
Hmm.
um, Nothing really comes to mind because you push up here and get a check, but then your queen.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what's immediately wrong here.
Okay. So I'll just show you. After if queen takes, then this queen is actually hanging because, like you mentioned, this
All right, damn it. Yeah,
yeah,
Marshall said I was close. I was so close. Yep, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and
Dude, this is gonna kill the 800s. I'm
yeah,
gonna I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this.
and if instead they're like 900 and they realize that they can't take the bishop, or sorry, if they can't take the bishop, then they might play queen takes b2 instead, going after the rook. All right.
Then we queen takes, right? This is like super powerful, right? We have a
Yeah,
really strong check.
and if your opponent is terrible and plays king e8, then I mean it's just mate in one,
Checkmate.
or sorry,
Yep.
yeah, mate in one, and like all the way down. And if
Yeah.
not, if he goes back to with queen f6, then you have this idea. Check. And then after black, moves his king somewhere, let's say just here, then we can just win the queen back and we're doing great.
That sounds pretty solid to me. My chat is saying that no 800 knows King's Gambit theory. So we'll
Yeah.
probably hopefully knock them, get them like more out of their comfort zone earlier on.
Mhm.
Hopefully that's the idea.
Yeah. Now, even if they don't blunder and they, play a normal move like queen back to d6 here after this, after our bishop move, right?
Yep.
We can still have a lot of ideas because You know, if black plays a normal move here, like queen to b6, checking and going after this pawn here, then I want you to find a tactic here that basically wins on the spot.
Okay. So I don't. Is it showing on the screen? But bishop e3 seems super powerful, right? You're attacking the queen and you have a discovered check.
Yeah, and this is obviously very good. Again, I just want you to take note of all of black's pieces. They're doing absolutely nothing. And all of white's pieces, even if we don't have that many, are all coordinated on the attack. And this, yeah,
I love it.
yeah. Um, anyways, we're gonna go back to queen f6 because obviously this doesn't have to be played. After queen takes f3, starting the Muzio gambit, there's ideas of something like bishop to c5, checking. And this is probably something that you'll counter a lot if something like this happens. And you want to get your king out of the way. And after they
You
bring
just
in,
walk away. Okay.
yeah, I just want to show you another like kind of trap. Basically, I think it was actually Bobby Fischer that said that tactics flow out of good positions, right? And when you help your pieces, they help you by rewarding you with all these beautiful attacks that you can find. So if with something like knight to c6, uh, black can go after two different threats here with a move, a centralizing move like knight to d5, attacking not only the queen, but also threatening a fork.
Yes. I'm
And
seeing it now. My chat though is saying that you should get rid of the computer arrows. It tells you the answers, but I think it's probably more instructive to have them. I think.
oh, these are my own arrows. Oh wait, are your computer arrows on?
I'm not sure. Can you see my stream? I do see like no, I see yours because yeah, it's like there's like
Are
a
they?
fork. It
They
wouldn't
should
draw
be
that, right?
green arrows, right? Like if they're
Yeah, yeah,
green,
yeah.
they mean I drew them. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I
So
paid I paid good money for those arrows, chat.
yeah.
Get rid of them.
Thank you. Um. Yeah. But anyways, if black goes something like queen h4, then what would you play here as white?
Okay, so now my chat's telling me. So the blue arrows are on. You want them off because now it's telling me that I play G3, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Turn the blue arrows off. It should be like
How,
the top right corner.
okay, my no, it's not mine. Okay, so all right, so I didn't come up with that, but we play G3.
Sure.
Thanks for the
Okay.
follow, Frappuccino 01.
I want you to find a more human move here. Like, pretend you don't know the answer, and it's not G3. I like what like I know that you're a very good player and play exactly like Stockfish, but if you didn't have
Yeah,
Stockfish helping, yeah, yeah, just
I'm
this, right?
thinking. Yeah, I'm looking at the fork, right?
Yeah, exactly, and that's something very natural. And if black moves their king, you can just pick up the rook, and you're doing fine for yourself, right? Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting to me that the pawn moves even better than that. Like I find that hard to believe than winning a whole rook.
Yeah, yeah, no, engines are pretty weird. They do things that we don't entirely understand. I mean, we could like go down that line, but honestly, it's a little deep, and even I don't fully understand everything that's happening. So I'd rather just stick to like human things, if that's okay.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah,
I'm a human.
yeah. Another idea after Queen F6 here is, or sorry, after Queen takes F3 here is Knight to F6. Here we can just play Queen takes F4, and as you can see, the F7
Triple
square
attack.
is just really weak. And after just some normal moves, I mean, it's pretty clear that White's better here, right?
Right. I mean, even if they don't move the F pawn, you win the game on the spot, right? It's mate one, right?
Yeah, and it's very possible that an 800 player doesn't do that. And maybe they'll defend or something like this, and then you have this idea, right?
Yep.
And honestly, like everything is good. Everything is good.
Everything's usually pretty solid.
Yeah, if they instead block with the knight, which is like basically the final line that will follow here, we can just play queen takes f4, and after bishop to e7, defending the knight again, we have something like e5, and
Right.
if your opponent is like, okay, my knight is under attack, I'm gonna move it, then what do you do?
So at this point, I no longer have the blue arrow, so this one's all me.
Hmm.
This one's another checkmate, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Nice
It's
and
easy.
easy.
I like this one a lot. First off, I like this one too because it seems like you'll be able to win games very quickly. So if I'm playing for a couple hours,
Yeah,
you can draw out the loses, so you can climb the MMR.
yeah, for sure. Uh, if instead they go for a better defense like d5, then you have e takes, and after bishop to g7, you have rook e1, and now black loses castling rights. And
Right.
now even though this isn't like, you might not look completely winning, you might understand why this is so good if we're down a piece or something. But you have to really look at the position and see that all of our pieces that are in green are really good, and all of black's pieces in red are really bad.
They're
If
not
that
doing
makes
much.
sense.
Here's a question from the chat from Martian Shark. If
Hmm.
you want to play the King's Gambit, but they play the French defense,
Hmm.
are you forced into the French?
Uh,
That that
so
could be totally made up words to me right now because I don't know what French defense means, and I just learned what King's Gambit is. But
I mean, I suppose if they play something like this, then I mean it's a completely different game. You could still play f4, so you're not forced into anything. I mean, just 2 3 moves wouldn't force you into playing anything. But yeah. So I wouldn't say you're forced. Or even,
I mean, by definition though, like if they don't play E5, then even if I play F4, it's not the King's Gambit, right? Because there's no
yeah. I
gambit
mean, they could
involved,
play
or is it?
anything, right? Like this isn't the King's Gambit anymore. This is probably some random opening that no one knows the name of because no one plays this, or something like this.
Yeah.
Like, is this the King's
I
Gambit?
want to get
No.
I want to get an opening named after. They're
Oh.
probably already old names. Some bullshit.
Yeah, yeah. With how cool computers are and how everyone loves computers, they actually named every single possible opening, and yeah. So unfortunately, that's a dream you might not have. But I mean, you can still have
Yeah.
a like
Hate defense.
yeah, taint defense.
Yeah. This is the opening that I used to play when I was a youngin.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I was playing this opening like 2 months ago. A4 and H4. It's like, oh, actually, pieces in the center are better. But anyway, so back to the King's Gambit. So this is cool. So now was that finishing up the line? Now we look at the declined variation, or
Yeah, we're looking at the decline variation. I doubt you'll get this a lot because, younger players and weaker players both, whenever they see a pawn, they always have to take. And it is actually the
grab it?
best
Yeah.
move to take here. But say they, decline it by playing something like bishop to c5, just developing, then you just develop as normal. And honestly, the game kind of plays itself. You get a pretty massive center because of your extra pawn that's playing.
A huge center. Yeah.
Yeah, and like everything just feels very natural. And you should kind of, you know, like it's worse for black to not take the gambit. And if we ever take a look at the queen's gambit, declined or accepted, then you'll notice that it's better to not take. But with the king's gambit, it's always better to take.
Yeah. I actually I was playing. I watched a few different videos on this.
Mhm.
A couple of questions on the chat. So, um, I play Queen's Gambit. Do they have similar lines? I don't think so. I think it's pretty separate, right?
Yeah, it's entirely different. If chat wants, then we can take a look at the queen's gambit next week. Or I mean, yeah, we do have a lot of things to go through here today, but
Yeah. So
it's
yeah,
it's
I
completely
think
different
they're pretty
ideas.
different. Cool.
Yeah. Just as a small line, if after something like this, then he plays. Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, my what was I trying to show here? Oh yeah, sorry. After knight takes c3, this is actually a tactical idea here. So I want you to kind of calculate, and if your blue arrows are off, I want you to tell me like what you would do as white in this position. I'm sorry for skipping over
Okay,
this
so
earlier.
yeah, so if I'm looking here, if I'm white, um, looking at the queen to
Hmm.
start, and so like if I put over here
Okay.
and push to B3, then I'm attacking the bishop and the knight.
Right.
Um, knight has escape routes to here, here, here,
Yeah.
here.
Too many
I'm guessing
swings.
B3 there. Queen B3.
Queen b3. Okay. If queen b3, then I'll just move my knight back. Let's say here or here, even. And I'm gonna unfortunately. I mean, okay. So here's there's still a really good move here. I want you to try and find it.
Okay, let's see if we can still find it. So our knight can't seem like it doesn't like it's moving to any interesting places. The bishop over here, we can get like a force check. Did you highlight this bishop? Wait a
Yeah.
minute.
Trying to give you a little
Is
hint
that bishop the entire? Like I can just like should I miss that? Is
here.
that blind?
Yeah. That's an idea. Um, and this is actually something that you'll have to do, especially when I mean, well, first of all, congratulations on noticing that both queens were hanging here, and I'm glad that you looked at your defense first. But it's also good to look at the attack, right?
Yeah,
This
and
is
just start
something,
getting in there.
yeah, this is something that happens a lot. Um, in like honestly in a lot of games I've had this kind of idea a lot where both queens are under attack and you need to figure out like what you're meant to do because honestly I don't know if I'm supposed to defend my queen or if I'm supposed to take the enemy's queen, right?
Yeah.
Now Stockfish obviously knows, but since we're not Stockfish we have to actually calculate the thing out. So this is something that I want you to practice, especially if you're playing a longer time control where you can really sit and think. You have to be able to see everything here. So from this position, you need to think to yourself, all right, Mitch, if I take here, then you'll be like the pro chess streamers that draw all the arrows. Black takes here, I'll take here, black can take here, I'll take here, and then what's happening here after black takes me back, right? And then luckily for you, we can actually do that over the board, and we'll get to this position where, as you can see, black is better because he has two knights and I only have one knight.
Right.
But this is a blunder that I'm sure you've made this kind of blunder where you just have two really interesting moves and you end up going with the worst one just because you didn't calculate. But never be lazy, always calculate, and you'll always improve at chess.
Yes. So this is one where like you stop after a certain point, right? Where you don't want to keep on moving your bishop or because it seems like the pawn take is not that great, right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, no. Here, uh, in this position, b takes c3 is the best move, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, so you just take it.
Yeah, and the point is that after the queen moves somewhere, then we just have bishop d3, and we're controlling all these squares. We're castling, and white has a beautiful center, and black has nothing to show for not taking the gambit.
Cool.
Okay. Um. So the king's gambit, I don't know how often you'll get it. In case your opponent decides to be sneaky, and instead plays a Sicilian, right? So after e4, if they play c5, which I think
Right.
happens a fair bit for you, then there's a
Yes, I've seen it.
similar
I've seen it a few times.
Yeah, there's a similar idea where you still manage to play f4. You don't play it immediately. Well, you could, but normally the better move is knight c3. And after something like knight c6, you want to go for f4. Again, trying to have a massive center.
You got a big center there.
Yeah. So if you're interested, we'll take some look at those lines as well.
Yep. The chat is very much looking forward to the Grand Prix. I guess it's just a massive center,
Yeah.
right?
Isn't Grand Prix also like a Mario thing as well? I think there's like a track named after it.
Like a racing. Yeah, that sounds right. And so that works there too because I play Mario. So there you go. I should
Yeah.
play Mario Kart too.
Yeah. Um, so here's just the ideas. I mean, I know that you can understand all of this, but I drew the circles and the arrows.
Don't be so sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we play f4 here, controlling the center.
Wait, so hold on. So if we see a Sicilian, which
Mhm.
is any both the C5 and C6 is Sicilian, right? Is that correct or no?
No, no, no. So the
It's
C6
only
is the
C5.
Caro Kann.
Carol. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we see C5, and we
Yeah.
we bust out the knight to C3,
Yep.
and then we bring and then to F, and we got a big, big, big center.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, all these squares are ours. Now,
Cool.
again, I don't know how much theory the average 800 player will know, but if they're like, half decent, they would go for something like G6 to
Right.
make room for this bishop. And we'll just continue developing normally with knight f3. After bishop to g7, we play bishop
Right.
c4, looking at this f4 square again.
I don't see the black defense a lot in my games,
Hmm.
my normal games, but I see it against my viewers who are generally higher rated than me, like probably 1200 and 1500. So I think that's a little bit like higher level. But yeah.
Mm, okay. Well, I don't know exactly what to like go with because in this, anyone that really plays a Sicilian should have this idea in mind because
Right.
it's like the accelerated dragon and whatnot. Like a lot of Sicilian lines have this bishop to g7 idea in mind, and what I wanted to illustrate to you is that even if they don't go for your king's gambit and accept it, then you can still have ideas of sacrificing this f pawn later on with f5.
Throw it at him.
Yeah, and obviously the worst continuation, which is probably the continuation you always get, because like I said, low rated players always capture, is g takes
Capture.
f5.
Yeah.
After e takes f5 and e takes f5, you just start with d4, and
Okay. D4. So I was looking on the right knight, but it's D4 here to get. Okay, I can say, and you break by the knight as well.
yeah. The point is that you kind of want to open things up and basically get attacking and get all your pieces launching towards this king as soon as possible because always you're one move ahead and are going to be able to castle and bring your rook into the center, and black has to still play this and then castle basically.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, I'll have to refer to this a bit.
Yeah, you'll have access to this forever. And oh yeah,
Nice.
I'm supposed to tell you this beforehand, but I'm also recording this and I'll be uploading it to YouTube and sending it to you if you ever
Good.
want to
We're
refer
all
back
get
to it.
we're all gonna get rich.
Yeah.
We're all gonna be rich in chess.
Hmm. Oh, I just drew all these
What's
arrows
that?
for fun, but essentially, after something like this in the Grand Prix, if Black chooses to capture earlier on, then after King FA, I mean, look at all these arrows. You know, the more
There's,
arrows, the
I
better.
mean, that's a lot of arrows there.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of arrows. I'm liking what I'm seeing.
I'm essentially what I'm trying to tell you is that you have a lot of attacking prospects here, and all of your pieces are pointing at the Black King, whereas all of Black's pieces are still going to have some trouble really finding their place in the game.
Yep, it looks pretty solid to me. Cool.
Cool. Okay, we can come back to this later if we want to look at some more lines, or we can continue with more lines, or we can go straight to the end game against Bidoof. It's up to you.
I think we got time. We can take a look at more lines. I'll probably want to come back to the King Gambit lines too at the start
Hmm.
because I think that's probably going to be what I'm going to be playing a little bit more, and I might play some like random Q to
Right,
practice on stream. And to see
right.
that as well. But I think we can look at some more lines now. How about that?
Okay. So earlier here, instead of g takes e5, g takes f5, right? After we sacrifice this pawn, if uh, if black plays the best move, which is knight from g to e7, then we can just really do whatever we want. And taking is the simplest for me. After d takes
Yep.
e5, we just castle. After b6, trying to activate black's light squared bishop, we have something like d3, supporting this pawn more. And after bishop b7, this is going to be the general idea. You have things pointed at f7, which is always good.
Right.
Um, oh yeah, here's something that you'll really like to listen to. So do you know how last lesson we talked about the relative value of the pieces, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
One, three,
how
five, nine.
yeah, and how they can change based on where they are, right? For example, this rook on a1 is much worse than this rook on f1.
Yeah. You got to get through a whole lot more crap.
Yeah,
Also, this guy's rook on h8 just seems like garbage, hot garbage, right? Like
yeah,
you have to move a lot of pieces to get him in the game.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So value of pieces isn't only determined by what piece they are, but also by where they are and like their surrounding. So whenever black plays g6, g6 followed by bishop to g7, this bishop becomes one of the protectors of black's king.
Right.
So it's very, very useful to you to get rid of this guy because as you can see, black has, imagine this bishop wasn't here, right? Let's say black played instead of bishop here, black played something silly like here, and I just took, and
Right.
then let's just here let's do it like this. So we just basically got rid of this bishop magically. But um
Longer there.
yeah, as you can see, black has a lot of dark square weaknesses because he no longer has a dark squared bishop, and he put all his pawns on light squares, which means that he only controls other light squares. Now, this is something that is a little more advanced, and you'll learn as the game goes on and as your intuition for chess develops. But whenever you see something like this, where all the pawns are on light squares, right, you want to get rid of the dark squared bishop.
Cool. That makes sense. Yeah, I've started to try to do that too. Like at my games, it's like,
Hmm.
oh, he's only got a light square bishop left. Obviously now I'm gonna put all my pieces on dark squares, but I,
Yeah,
I haven't really used it like thinking about the opponent. It's like, oh, okay, and if it only has light squared pawns, then dark squares aren't covered. Something to think about. Cool.
yeah. So that's why I drew all these arrows here. You want to essentially someday play bishop to h6 and trade off these bishops, and then you want your queen into the attack, coming in here to help with that. And someday you're gonna, mate the black king after he castles.
That
If
makes
that makes
sense.
sense. Yeah. Okay. Great. So the other line that I want to take a look at here is after instead of c takes d4, um, a line that I found really interesting was what if black plays bishop to d4 instead? Well, in that case, you just actually play bishop g5, hitting the queen,
Interesting.
and after something like bishop back to f6 defending, you have queen e2 check, and this is somewhat balanced, but white has more ideas of attacking, and again, you'll notice that white has 5 pieces out, whereas black only has 2.
Cool.
Yeah, great. If you're okay with that, we'll go on and look at the endgame against Bidoof.
Sounds good. Produce Lukas, Final Fantasy 11. Thanks for the follow.
Hmm. Thank you
Ooh,
so
we're at
much.
150 followers. I'll be
Wow.
my next stream. I'm gonna be wearing 2 hats. That's how you incentivize the Twitch viewers. They come for hats, I think.
Wow. Okay, so are the black pieces on our side? I just want to make
Okay, so
sure.
I was black. Okay, yep.
Yeah, the black pieces are on our side, right? And you're against Bidoof, a very strong opponent, much higher rated than you at the time of playing. And
Not anymore. I'm now 882. I'm now higher. But yeah, we can take a look.
yeah, so I really
The
want
features become
to
yeah.
look at
Good.
the end game here. You guys basically blundered back and forth as always, but going
There are a lot
forward,
of blunders in this game.
yeah. Okay, we'll just go to the game really quickly. I won't comment too much. I'll just let you guys watch what happens. Almost every other
There was
move
a
is a
lot of
blunder.
blunders here.
Yeah, very very interesting game.
So Bluetooth likes using his queen.
Oh yeah, I mean this is supposed to be more of an endgame lesson, but I mean just so you guys know, uh, I don't know really what to say. I mean basically almost every move is a mistake, but
These are good games. We give people what they want.
yeah. I mean, don't worry too much about these simple mistakes though, because what a lot of chess players lack after they learn the openings that they like to play is the end game to actually close it out. So I don't know if you watched much of like PogChamps, for example, but that was a
I
tournament
did
with
watch a little bit. Yeah.
yeah,
Oop.
that was a
Hey,
tournament
Dinosaur, thanks for the follow.
with a
Yep.
lot of newer players. And I remember one game in particular. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Fusely. I think she was around 600 rated, and I think she was up like 2 rooks or something. And it was like 2 rooks against like basically nothing, and she didn't know how to mate.
Yes.
Now, I know that you're much better than that, and you're able to find the mate in a lot of positions. But a lot of new players lack just endgame technique in general. So today I'm going to be talking about, or right now I'm going to be talking about some ideas in the endgame and where your eye should really be going.
Cool.
Okay, so the end game kind of, I define it as when there's three pieces or less left for both sides. So you guys are approaching that now. You've already traded queens off, and after rook fd8, which is a blunder, and bishop takes, or sorry, rook takes d8, rook takes d8. I consider this the end game because now I have three pieces, and white has three pieces, and as you can see, we have three pawns on the king side, and or white has three pawns on the queen side, and then we're also matched on this, right?
Yep, everything makes sense. It's pretty even, right? And
Yeah,
even yeah, Stockfish tells you it's pretty even.
yeah. Stockfish tells us it's pretty even here. After knight f3, knight e4, um, and knight to e5. So this is a blunder, but I want you to like kind of ignore like the simple blunders and really go for like the more complicated ones because this is a blunder technically for Stockfish because it prefers the move rook to e1
To
and
attack the knight, yeah.
yeah, to attack the knight. And if we were to defend it, I mean, how do you really want to defend, right?
I would probably bring the pawn up on F. I play F5.
Okay, try doing that and see what happens.
I'm not sure if I can move it. Maybe you have to do it.
No, 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 you could. Here,
Oh,
try
I
moving any
can't
other
move it
pawn.
because it's pinned. We're pinned.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why.
So that's why this is a blunder. You're essentially losing a piece here. I don't know what the best move is. It's probably to either take this pawn or like play. Oh, actually, no, you have this check maybe. But after this, you're still losing this rook
Right.
or whatever. Um, but I want us to focus on like the more human mistakes again that are based off of ideas instead of like pure raw calculation. After you played bishop to f6 here, and I think this was just a miscalculation on your part. Or here, actually take a minute and tell me what you would want to play in this position.
I don't like the knight in my territory.
Hmm.
So maybe then I want to push him around with
Hmm.
no, that's terrible because I just lose the knight.
Yeah,
Um, Bringing the knight to center is okay. Actually, I'd probably do rook to d2. Right. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm used to playing the other way.
Oh,
You're having me flip. I gotta flip the board. So I'm not sure what I would play here. Maybe something with the knight. I would probably try knight to c5.
yeah, and
So
that's
that's my plan.
that's the simplest and the best move. Uh, Although it seems like you're losing a pawn, that's much better than what ended up happening after you played bishop to f6. And this is honestly a calculation error. And again, it's the same mistake that you kind of made last time, or you could have possibly made if in longer time controls, we sometimes get lazy and just assume that this move is okay. But when
Right.
there's something forced, right? When there's a forced variation, you want to calculate it out because it's very simple because you can just say, okay, after I take, or after white takes, black takes here, and there's a check. And after the king
Yep.
moves, we can, you should be able to see this in your head and say, oh wow, white has a pawn here, and I don't have a pawn, so I'm doing worse.
Yep. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Um, that's actually what ended up happening in the game anyway. So you got to this position without calculating it. So I guess kudos to you for saving energy, but it's the worst position to get into.
We
Um,
did it. Hold on. So how do I flip the board
I'll flip
on?
it for you here.
Okay. Thank you. I'm getting very good.
Yeah, I just wanted it from your perspective, but this is fine too, obviously. Here g4 was played, advancing the pawns, which is
Did
considered.
you flip it?
Yeah, are you on white side now?
I would like to be on. Oh, I'm on the wrong side. I'm on the white side. I like to be on the black side.
Okay.
Is it okay
Okay,
for me to
so
flip it?
yeah, you hit the menu on the bottom right, and then you hit flipboard.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Good.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought it flipped for you. My bad.
Yeah. No worries.
Um. Anyways, this is all like this is an inaccuracy, but it's something that I would play too. And I know that I'm not perfect by any means, but like I'm somewhat decent at chess. And if I would play a move, it means that it's probably not the worst thing in the world. Usually, usually. Stockfish prefers a4, but I mean, it's like for me, I can't really entirely tell the difference, and it's like a small evaluation difference. So we're just gonna ignore the small mistakes and continue with the game.
Right.
You attack the bishop, which is good because if the bishop were to move, then you would take this pawn, which is excellent.
Yep.
Um, you attack the bishop again, and he's forced to move the bishop. So this is all excellent. You're gaining a lot of tempo by pushing around the bishop, and as you can see,
Right.
you've improved your pawn and your rook, and black has gotten or white has gotten nothing out of it. You push c5, preparing c4, and Bidoof plays c4 immediately instead. But here's a mistake that is more so of an understanding mistake than a calculation mistake. So when you take here, right, which
Yes.
is what happened in the game, you have something called isolated pawns. Um, so as you can see, if after Bidoof took your pawn, you have on the queen side, so like on this half of the board, right?
Yep.
You have two pawn islands, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
these guys,
They're yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they can't
They're
help
not
each other.
connected.
Yeah. Whereas Bidoof's pawns, they're like best friends. They're like helping each other. They can protect one another
Interesting.
and transform into a passed pawn somewhere down the line. So this isn't. I mean, it might not be clear if someone hasn't played a lot of chess why this is a bad idea to take on c4. It might seem like a normal move, and I've seen you make a lot of moves like this where you just you think to yourself, well, I'm getting a pawn, he's getting a pawn, it must be equal. But in
Right.
chess, it goes a lot deeper than that, and it's not just equal.
Yeah. So that makes sense to me. So I never really thought about that, but yeah, it's like yeah, these guys are way far from each other. They're not giving any support.
Mhm.
Saying lean on me. That's a good song. I'll add that to my list. But yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
So continuing, after you pushed a5, again, ignore the evaluation bar and the blunders and whatnot. Um, this is all like your idea here is okay, even if your moves aren't. And luckily, here you found rook d8. Obviously, if you play something like takes, then you're getting mated.
Yep.
So continuing, you played rook
I've
d8.
had that happen many times, I'm starting to learn.
Mm, excellent. After h4, I want you to try and find a tactic here.
So I remember playing this game against Bidoof, and I was just really eyeballing this bishop, but this obviously doesn't make sense because the king just takes, right? If this king was just one square away, it would be so nice, right? Because you get a rook out of the exchange.
Yeah,
Um, but that's not the case. You
look,
can pull
try
the
again,
king
try again.
over. Actually, no, hold on. That's fine because the
Yeah,
king can't come because you're protected. Oh my god,
exactly. So
it is the case.
a lot of times, players of all levels, they'll disregard a move because they'll be like, "Oh, of course it doesn't work." But it's often useful, especially in rapid games, to just even spend 2 or 3 seconds extra thinking about a move, just in case it might work. Because we aren't perfect by any means, and even if we think obviously something is whatever, it might not be that way.
Yeah, I need to. That's the two things. It's like protected pieces and pins, and I think that's gonna hopefully probably get me to like 1,000. Because when I can recognize that, oh, that pawn can't take my knight because it's pinned by the rook, then that's opening up like a whole new game for me, and that's kind of like what my level is. And I can definitely see opponents that just don't like they take a really long time in a move because they don't see it. Like they get a piece pinned and they don't realize it. And I know on their screen they're trying to drag it. It's like, why can't I move this shit?
Yeah.
Because I've done it too.
Yeah, no, of course. It happens to everyone, really. And I just want you to know that this isn't like it's not about you being stupid or anything. It's a human thing where so like where we don't look at moves that we write off as silly because we want to be efficient. But I just want you to like in the future, even if because you're very strong as like a calculator and you play very, very principled moves generally, but you want to be like the
Good
best
night,
chess
though.
player possible. And in doing so, you might actually be hurting yourself by not looking at moves that you might think are silly. So I just want you to like obviously trust your intuition, but also if you have the time, just calculate for an extra 2 seconds, and it might just win you the game.
Cool. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. Yeah, that would be I'd be totally winning, right? Plus a rook.
Yeah, yeah, plus a rook. As you can see by with the evaluation, it's 6-9. A nice number there.
Yep. The main number,
Yeah.
almost 420. Yep.
So G5, I mean, don't worry about it. It's only saying it's a blunder because you missed this idea. But don't worry, he allowed it again, and you missed it again,
Yeah, I still missed it.
and then you missed it again. But oh no, you got it here. Oh, excellent.
I found it.
Yeah. Oh,
Interesting.
my bad. Sorry about that, Mitch. Of course you found it. I mean, who am I to?
Good. Good. I found it eventually.
Yeah, but don't worry. Now you really show us being up a rook how one can still not win a game. And don't
I
worry
blundered it.
because
So
no, no.
I think you get the check here, right? The check is probably better.
No, your idea is okay. I assume that you're hitting this pawn here as well as the bishop. The check is probably better because then you can come around like this.
Yeah. Yeah, you can just kind of go around the corner like a cul-de-sac.
Yeah. Um, to be completely honest with you, Mitch, if I was playing this and let's say that in this exact position right here, I had, let's say, 10 seconds, right? And let's say that my opponent had an hour. Uh, I would still be able to pre-move enough moves that I should be able to win this just because of how simple the game is at this point.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. And I think Hikaru's talked about something like this before too, but you need to like look at this and have your plan ready. Okay? So if this was like, if like I said, I had 10 seconds left, I would be happy and comfortable in this position because I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to, well, okay, so here's not the best move, but still like a winning move. After something like this, let's just say black or white moves somewhere. I'm just going to take this bishop. And
Interesting.
after, I'm just going to play here. And this is solid, right? This is like rock solid. You can't do anything.
And then you have up the king side, right?
Yeah.
You
So
have
then
this
after
guy
white
marching
does
up.
whatever, like we're just gonna like you can understand how I would be able to pre-move all of this, right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
these are all sensible moves, and obviously this is queening, and white can't do anything here.
Yeah, this is interesting. Cool. Yeah, that's a fun one. I mean, I think it's a matter of like trying to expand your territory because it's like now I'm at the point where like oh if I have two rooks I can win the game right because
Hmm.
like I know that mating pattern because it's dirt simple and I can get a little bit fancy with knights and stuff. This
Hmm.
one's just a little bit outside my comfort zone, but now that makes sense. It's like oh okay, go you go over here,
Yeah,
or sorry yeah you go over here and then you grab this and then you have something that's like totally winning over here.
yeah,
But yeah, just kind
exactly.
of like expanding that.
Just remember, I mean, even though we start off with 16 pieces each, at the end of the game, all you really need is to be up one pawn, and you'll still win. So,
Yep.
don't be afraid of giving away material if you're up material, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
The other idea here is just if you just simplify and you liquidate, then you'll be great. So um, this was all played in the game, and I feel like your problem wasn't that you're like bad at
Being
end
wrong.
games or anything, but oh yeah, that too. But um, it's that you
No
didn't
idea.
have like a plan. You didn't know what you were going to do, so you were just playing moves for the sake of playing them without having a plan in mind. And you still played like good chess, and you had a lot of good ideas, but your problem was that you just didn't have the plan beforehand. So what ended up happening was that you ended up throwing away what was supposed to be a free win, even though you played excellent throughout the game, just because you were unable to identify what needed to be done, and then ended up just playing for the sake of playing, and especially in time pressure. I'm sure that you were like talking to chat and whatnot. So then you ended up having some
Yeah.
problems. So
Yeah.
essentially,
Well,
mhm,
that's the thing, though. Is yeah, it might be even better to spend talk about endgame for next one because before I was losing games. The games I lost well before the end games, and now I still blunder, but I blunder less. So I'm actually getting to end games. So now it's like more relevant for me to learn them. You know.
right, of course. Uh, Here I just wanted to point out that you had a lot of ideas with tempo. So do you know what tempo is? First of all, let me just ask you.
Yeah, I've been hearing it a lot too, but it's like tempo. It's like the. It seems to me like the opponent has to respond to your move. It's like, oh, you lose a tempo, right? That's my understanding.
Yeah. So in music, tempo basically means like time. I don't know exactly where it's from. It's probably like some Latin thing, but it's related to the concept of time. In chess, if if at the beginning of a game, like I don't know, here, let me just let's go to the King's Gambit chapter, and let's just say
Yeah, I'm
that
there.
like we got free tempo, right? Let's just say Black played silly moves, and we just got to make 4 moves in a row. We win.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
your opponents won't let you do this very often, but what you can do is you can make threats that your opponents have to respond to, so that you essentially get free moves in, if that makes sense.
Right.
So, for example, um, in back against in this endgame against Bidoof, sorry, I think you have to flip the board again.
Yep.
Yeah, just
Yep.
the
I'm there.
menu and then flip board.
Yep.
You want to be thinking about how you can get free moves, and Rook G5, or sorry, yeah, Rook here would have been a way to get a free move to essentially do what you want next. And now, after the king moves away, you have this idea, right? Targeting
Yep.
both this and this. So it's just something to think about where by just going down here, you're not gaining anything. You're just letting your opponent respond. And if both of you get 1 move in each time, then how is any of you going to be better if you're equally of equal strength?
Yes. I'm pretty sure our accuracy for this game was negative. It was not high.
Yeah, it was pretty poor. It was pretty poor. Uh, so just continuing. I mean, oh yeah, here is another mistake. It's
Yeah, I
not,
blocked off my bishop, so it was no longer protected.
oh well,
This
yeah.
was just ugh.
Here checkmate is actually unavoidable, and it's actually a good idea because you can take this thing, this bishop, and now it's a forced mate. But instead of making you calculate a forced mate in 7, which I think would probably take a few years, I'm gonna try and get you to understand this idea of
I can do mate in 7. Mate in 10's hard for me. Nah, I probably can't do mate in 7. I can do mate in 4 or 5 though. Usually,
really.
I've been practicing my tactics. But go ahead.
I struggle with like anything like that's like more than 3 moves, to be honest, and because I don't know, but especially if something isn't entirely forced, there's just so many variations, right? Because
Right. Right. Yeah.
after
I
like
was I was watching a streamer who's an IM named Casablanca, and he's like, I could do like a mate here earlier, or I could just trade material. So I'm gonna trade material. It's like, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, all that matters is the 1 and the 0, right? Like win or loss. So regardless of how you win, you win. And
Yep.
this other grandmaster, he's pretty big on Twitch. His name's Daniel Naroditsky.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard of him.
Yeah, he has this rule called if you can't do it in 3 moves, then it doesn't exist. And I mean, this is just for like faster time controls. But the idea is basically like if you have like a dream position and you can't achieve it in 3 moves, then try to just find a simpler continuation that you know is still good.
Yep.
Yeah. So, anyways, what I want you to see here. Okay, actually, just looking at this position, what do you see here?
But what I'm worried about is this pass pawn, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
becoming a queen. So then I was like, I immediately think about the rook
Mm-hmm.
moving over, but then the king can just prevent that attack.
Yeah.
Um, so those are my immediate thoughts.
Okay. So here's some arrows that I wanted you to take a look at.
Oh wow, yeah. The king coming over blocks stuff off. Yeah. So this is nice. Yeah, so I own this column, sorry,
Mhm.
file, and I can bring the king over. Oftentimes in the end game I forget the king, but the king gets it. Wait, hold on. One and then one and then one, but then they're queens. If he
Yeah.
goes down one, I have to move the rook over, right?
Yeah, but fortunately it's Black's turn, so I can play this.
Oh, okay. So then we're good. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we're good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you for not seeing all of this because there's only a few seconds left. But even worst case scenario, let's say our king was like, over here or something. Like, let's say our king didn't exist. Let's say it was like all the way over on h1 or something. Even
Right.
still, we can bring our bishop here, and
Right.
this pawn can never
That's what I
move.
need to get better. Yeah, better at. It's like my bishop's in the end game. Bishop's knights in the end game. It's like, whoo, that's hard. But yeah, now you can't move that shit anymore. And he's gonna have to waste a turn getting the king out of the way, right?
Yeah, but that's the magic of the position. There's no reason at all for this king to ever be let out of this cage here. This king is stuck. As long as you keep your rook on patrol here, this king can never step out.
Yes, that's the one thing that I've used. Well, it's like when I have an advantage, like a rook advantage. It's sorry, you just post up a king, like post up a rook right here.
Hmm.
You own the entire file, and you just march a pawn up. And you can win with like 5 seconds left.
Yeah, yeah, basically. Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool shit.
Okay. Anyways, I mean, this is actually drawn here, but it doesn't matter too much. You guys blunder back and forth enough times, but unfortunately, I mean, here it's a draw, right?
Yeah, this
After
is a
just
draw.
takes. But I mean, you were probably scared of losing as well. But even here, can you find the best move for black to keep the win alive?
So I think the king's out of it. Okay, so it's probably bringing the rook over here,
Um,
right?
if it's
No,
here,
because
then
then
I
the
move my
king can
pawn
come.
here. Or yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you
okay.
move your guy. Okay, so if we do, I can check here. I get a check.
Hmm. Okay, so if you check, I just move up.
Yeah, so that doesn't do much. But what if I check this one?
Yes, exactly. And
And,
no,
and then then you have a king. Then you have a king rook end game, which is winning, right? I
yeah,
can do that one. I practiced on chess.com
here,
with the
here,
drills.
here. Practice against me. Beat me. You play black, I'll play white.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can still do it. Okay, so I want to go here.
Hmm.
Is that you have a little box, and you want to keep on. You want to keep the king in the box.
Yeah,
So he's like he can only go over here, right?
yeah. I'm stuck to
You
these
protect.
squares.
Yeah. Then you go over there, and then I can. Then I go over here. You never check until you get the checkmate with this one, right?
Yeah.
I forget what the end was. Okay, so then go down here.
Why do I play
Thing,
here?
play there. I can just go. I don't think I move the. I don't think I move the king over. Move the king up. Move the king up. Wait a minute. Yeah, that's fine. If you move there, you're fine, right?
Yeah.
So then I go down here. What was the okay, now I can't play the king over. Play up here. Then I go over here. You're getting smaller and smaller where you can go.
Okay. But how do you end
And
it?
then I go here. And then it's like the final blow is a check, right?
Sure.
And then you can only go down. That is stalemate. I go down here. And then you can get out of the box. So that one's a stalemate. Son of a bitch. Oh yeah, right here. Then you just go to the side. And yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's good.
Wait, the game is a draw?
No, no. This is win. This is
That's a
win.
checkmate.
Yeah. Sorry.
Woo!
The other game was the game against Bidoof was a draw. Yeah.
We
So
did it.
your idea of
Partial.
a box is good, but it doesn't necessarily have to always be a box. Just in this position, I personally like to think of it more as a wall, right? There's basically a wall here that I can never cross, right?
Right.
So, I'm just gonna play some random moves here and just move this black. Basically, this is the idea that you want to have, where the white king is stuck
Interesting.
on the back rank, right? So he only has these squares to go to, and more often than not, the positions that you'll encounter to mate in will be something like this, where the kings are
Right.
facing off against one another, and the rook comes in from the side,
Interesting.
right?
Right. Yeah, the king blocks off these guys. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sure that you practice this a lot on your own as well, but let's just continue, and I'm going to show you something that's a little more advanced, but it's basically the beginning to actually studying an endgame. Or or actually, do you want to stop exactly at 8, or do you want to continue a little bit after that? It's up to you.
Probably eight's good.
Okay.
Probably eight's good. Just to yeah.
Then I'll let you decide what you want to do for the last little bit. We can either take a look at the Lucena position, which is this, or we can take a look at a game in the King's Gambit.
I think the King's Gambit probably be good.
Okay. So this was played a long time ago, I believe sometime in the 1841, by Howard Staunton, who was one of the best chess players at the time and, in the 1800s in general. And, you have Staunton as like a household name almost with all the chess sets that they make. I don't know if it's like the same family or anything, but it's cool.
Right.
Anyways, this was his game against someone named NN, and he played the King's Gambit, followed by the Muzio Gambit, sacrificing this knight here by castling, right?
Yep. Exactly what we talked about.
Yeah. So this is actually following our initial analysis pretty quickly. And again, don't play rook e1 here because, yeah,
Yep. That's bad.
yeah. Uh, Howard continued the d3, bishop h6 by his opponent, defending this pawn.
The chat really likes, Marshall really likes the Staunton variation. Is that what this is, or that's probably something different?
I actually wouldn't know. Um, if
Interesting.
if he would know, then he could
Post
type
that
it out in
link.
chat. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Anyways, the theme that I want you to think about is like tactics combined with development is really the best way to win the game. And here, Howard actually makes a pretty big mistake that, I mean, it's not like a big, actually, it is a pretty big mistake. I don't know why he takes here. I have no clue. As a normal,
Yeah,
like,
bishop takes back. Yep.
yeah, like random 1800 player would just play this, develop my bishop somewhere safe, and then threaten this kind of idea. And I thought that, I mean, and the engine agrees with me that it's a lot better. But instead, he played bishop takes f4. But I mean, respects. And here, instead of trading, very importantly, he goes for this on the f7 square.
Triple
So as you
attack.
could, yeah. So here, there's like a million things looking at f7 square, and you know, uh, like against anyone really, they should be a little scared. Uh, his opponent played queen d4 check, and after we played king h1, just to look at the state of the game here, we have four beautiful active pieces. Black's king is stuck in the center of the board, and black only has two pieces out, so we're doing a lot better.
And I mean, this check is really nasty, right? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a forced move, right?
Yeah, enforcements are always good. Now, if you got this position against Stockfish, Stockfish would beat you. Stockfish would beat pretty much anyone in this position because the computers defend really, really well. Humans, we don't defend well because we don't see a lot of things, but we do attack very well. And
Yep.
a lot of child prodigies, like throughout the history of chess, they aren't like the best players or anything, but they make really, really nice games because no matter what, they just always attack. And attacking is really just a human thing to do. It's very simple, and we like to do it. So he blocks this, right? The opponent, the bishop,
Right.
and we play queen takes f7, which
Love it.
is what I would play. And now, again, even though we're down a piece, all of black's pieces are stuck. So really, we could even think of it as us being up material because of the fact that black isn't using any of the material that he's up.
Right. And this is a checkmate, right? If nothing else happens, if it's queen to e7, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he plays there and after queen f7, or e7, unfortunately the knight can still take.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah,
Yeah, see, look at this.
but it's good that your eye
Go
is
there.
going there.
Yep.
uh,
But oh, you have okay, but that's not check.
this would be the
Wait
mate.
a minute. That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anyways, he again. Something that we discussed when you've already sacrificed material, you shouldn't like hang on to whatever else you have left as if it's like your only chance at being equal. You don't want to be equal after you sacrifice material. You want to win. And so here, Howard Staunton sacrifices his bishop to open up some space and get more into the attack, bringing his knight in, now controlling these two squares even further.
Yes. And now I'm eyeballing. Okay, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and after queen to h5, his opponent played queen g6, and then we played queen h4, and after king to c8, I mean, what side would you really take, Mitch here?
I mean, yeah, I'd definitely like to play white here. I'm
Yeah,
thinking, yeah, interesting idea. Wait,
I
no,
think.
no, no. Bishop takes that. But yeah, this is yeah. You're really on the move as the king here.
Hmm. I think that in a classical position, I would prefer black because just because of all the pieces that I'm up, and I know that there isn't like a forced mate or anything. But in a blitz game or anything like shorter time format, I would definitely prefer white just because of all the activity that we have. And against uh, a lot of opponents from the 1800s, they tend to make a lot of mistakes, so it's okay. So again,
Yeah,
we sacrifice another piece, or rather the exchange here, right? Letting black say, okay, you can take if you want, because again, we don't want to like be too stingent with our pieces. He moved away. He didn't want to take. And now we kind of start with the checks, and we sacrifice our rook here just to open up some more lines.
there's so many sacks.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Now here, I don't know exactly um, what like. See, this to me doesn't feel like white is winning, and I don't know what Stockfish would say actually. I think it would agree with me. Oh yeah, yeah, black is like completely winning here, but
That is 1.1. That's pretty huge. Yeah.
yeah, but the point with the King's Gambit isn't to be like a sound player, but instead to you know make some really
Have
cool
fun,
moves
baby.
that win the game. Yeah. Here the point of these arrows actually I believe was to show you what black should have done. If black had played here, there's some interesting ideas at play, and I think Howard Staunton would have probably resigned because we're actually looking at a lot of things. We're
There's a
looking
mate
at
one right here.
yeah. First, there's a maiden one, but also this knight is hanging, right? And after let's say that we stop the maiden one, right? So we can run away. Uh, Actually, this is a pretty okay. Whatever. We just take here, and now the queen's under attack, and this is under attack. And if we just decide to trade or something, then
So you're down a ton of material, right? You're
yeah,
down like everything.
yeah. So this is actually like a very unsound game, but I want to show it anyway because 1800s games work this way, and
And
your
I wish
games
I was
also
born
work
in the
this way.
1800s. I would have cleaned house.
Yeah,
Would have kicked ass.
I know. That's what I always think too. I was like, if there was any chance of me being the world champion, it would have been before chess was probably invented, to be honest. But I mean, it's really
Yep.
interesting, right? It's like, yeah. Honestly, the history of chess is pretty fascinating. But anyways, we just throw in a check here, and after king to d6, it's checkmate is now unavoidable. Do you think you could find it?
1-0 by white mate. Okay, so how far are we looking here?
Just two moves.
And how many moves?
Two moves. Two moves.
Moves. Okay, so if I do the queen, I get a check. I can go here, or sorry, here or here. If I get the move the queen there. Um, and then I think the queen is better like backing that off. So let's try the rook over,
Yep.
and
Rook.
then yeah, that those are all. And then we have a force move,
Yeah. No, it's not entirely forced, but
and
let's just assume.
then we go here. Yeah, now we go queen b4, right?
Yeah. That's a mate. Can you find
Cool.
another mate here? There's one
There's
more.
another one.
Yeah. Mate in one.
Uh, Wait, um, not here. Don't think
That's a little illegal.
that. Oh yeah, you never seen a queen move like that.
No,
The um, you also do this one doesn't do mate in one. I don't see it because he can still go over here.
yeah, essentially, you want to look at what pieces are controlling what square. So our knight here is controlling these two squares, right?
Right.
Our rook is controlling these squares. This bishop is blocking black off. So essentially, we need to give check and cover this square in blue.
Yes.
So queen b4 is a great way of doing that. But what's another idea that would also deliver check while covering the square? While covering
Deliver
queen
check
b4.
and cover that square. Um, I mean we can't move the knight.
It's a queen move.
Yeah, just the
Yeah,
queen right here.
yeah.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
it's both. There's just two squares off. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
Cool.
Um,
Cool.
yeah. That was, I think, the end of our time. If you want to keep going, we can. Or if not, then if you have any questions, I'll answer them now.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I think just the King's Gambit real quick.
Hmm.
Uh, so here, and then lines.
Sorry, here.
So yeah, so which ones? We go over that real quick before as the last thing, because then I want to probably take a quick break and then go. Okay, so then all right, so then I put the knight over, attack with the bishop. Okay, hold on. All right, so I want to practice this. Yeah, so we
Hmm.
go here, takes knight over, and then they probably play their knight, and then I attack with my bishop,
Hmm.
and then I sack another piece, right? I'll go over here.
So black normally plays g5 and then g4.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right,
But
I think that that's it for now. So everyone, please give a hand for Salty Chess. I'll share your link. I'm gonna take a quick 3-minute bio, and I'll be back in practicing the King's Gambit. Thanks a
yeah.
lot, Salty.
Thank you
Oh,
so much.
Salty's got his own Twitch channel, so feel free to plug that, and I guess a YouTube channel too, where you can share the link for this video.
Yeah, and if anybody is interested in coaching, then please just whisper me on Twitch and we'll get going from there.
Thanks a lot, Salty.
Thank you.
All right, see everybody in 3 minutes.